Welcome back to Turtles Hot Rods. Today, steering column, brake pedal assembly, air conditioner. Put the dash back in like it's supposed to be. That's what we're doing in this video. Let's get to it. Alright, left off the last video, got the dash back in, but it's just in there with two bolts. One on each side, you can see it there. And I have to get this flange lining up with this flange so that I can do all my spot welds. So I'm gonna get some screwdrivers and some pry bars and try to finagle that in there and set up the camera. I got the brake pedal assembly bolted back in, and I rounded up a few of the pieces that I believe held on the steering column. It's been getting close to a year since I took this truck apart, and I've kept up with all the pieces. And this goes up in here like that somehow. Bolts up in there. You can see the bolt holes for it right there and right there. And this piece goes on the front like this. Kind of a cover piece to just cover things up. It doesn't really hold anything, but it just kind of covers stuff up. So I got them in here, and I went ahead and got the I Did It steering column out. Just taking it out of the box. And I need to remove this little computer board, switchboard thing. And I need to remove this little arm, and so that I can slide it down in through everything, and I can make a hole in the firewall. Hopefully that little clamp right there will work. It's supposed to bolt in, I think. It's supposed to be made for this truck, so hopefully, you know, all the factory clamps and everything will hold it, but we're gonna find out. But man, this thing is nice. Look at that. I'm gonna tape up this little arm before I do anything, because I do not want to scratch that chrome. So it's sticking up really far right now, but it's got 8 inches that it's gonna go down whenever I get the hole made. And the reason it's upside down is because my the little electrical thing at the bottom, I have to have it right there to get it to clear the pedals and stuff that are down there. I'm gonna make some marks, and then I'm gonna remove the steering column, and then I'm gonna drill a hole. I might have to remove the pedals as well. It'll definitely be easier with them out of the way, but I have to have that in there to put the column in, so I'm gonna get on that. The way I'm going to attach the steering column to the firewall and have it be strong and secure, I'm going to use this piece of exhaust pipe right here. Factory has this thing, big ugly bracket, and it basically bolted to the firewall just like that and kind of cradled the steering column to it, and then it had this clamp that went around it and clamped it to it. So that is one option, but if I did that, I'd have to either put some studs on the back side, or I'd have to do some other edges. No, this is what we're doing. So this piece of pipe is slightly larger than this steering column, and I do not remember what size the pipe is, but you can see it fits on there, and there's a gap. Pretty decent sized gap, but you want it too big. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my cutoff wheel, and I'm gonna cut a slit right down the middle, all the way along, and then I'm gonna squeeze it together. And I'm gonna keep removing material along here until that fits on there snug. Now I don't want it so tight that it's hard to get on and off, but you don't want as big of a gap as we have. check that out. That fits pretty nice. So there's a little bit of play, but there's not hardly any this way. So it should hold it really tight and snug. And it's just tack welded right now. I'll grind those tack welds down. And I'm gonna turn the welder up really high to where it doesn't build a big mound, but it just makes a really flat, deep penetrating weld. And I'm gonna go ahead and finish weld this.
Times don't fly too high. Be sure to keep the ground in sight. Fly forever if you keep it tight. Love the world, but keep the sky on your mind. Flying, get on
board. Let's go. Check it out. I stuck the old gauge cluster in there just temporarily. It's just got some picks holding it up, but just wanted to make sure everything fit good, and man, that looks nice. Watch me weld the outside, but if you look, it's kind of not that good, the welds are right now. So I'm gonna come in here and weld the inside as well, and then I'm going to cut it off flush with the firewall on the outside and grind it down and clean it up. For my next trick, I'm gonna make this old piece of junk look like something nice and new and shiny. And it starts with removing the clutch pedal. We are putting an automatic transmission in this truck, so I will not need this clutch pedal right here. And I think I should be able to remove this bolt and remove this bracket thingy and just pound that rod out, and the clutch pedal should come with it because it seems to be attached to the rod on this end. So I'm gonna give that a try. Once I get that off, we'll start cleaning her up. That looks a little bit better now. Brand new, actually, what it looks like. But it's not. This is plenty good enough for now. We'll get it painted black before it goes in the truck. But it's all primed up. All I'll have to do before I paint it is just give it a good scuff. I actually got the big sandblaster out and brought it out here. My bead blaster just couldn't keep up with it. So next thing I'm going to do, though, you saw me knock these pins out. Like I said the other day, what I'm going to do, because I don't want to have two acorn nuts above the master cylinder, is I knocked those studs out, and I'm going to stick those through the firewall and weld them to the firewall, and then grind the head off and weld it up smooth. And so the studs will be welded to the firewall, and so the studs will be, you know, they'll go through this way whenever you install it, and you'll put a nut on the back side. That one's going to be a little tricky to get to, but I should be able to do it. In order to be able to weld it to this firewall, though, I need to make it a little thicker. And before I removed my pedal assembly, I marked out the firewall, the width of it. So I'm going to make a piece of metal that's that wide, and I'm going to drill those holes in it exactly. and then I'll weld that piece of metal to the back side of the firewall right there, and then I'll start building my bracing off of that. I got that panel welded in there. I didn't weld it all the way around. I'll just come back with some seam sealer. Now I just need to drill the holes out. Then I'm gonna put some of this flat bar bracing in there. I'm thinking about doing it coming across here and then a few pieces vertical, and that should give some real good rigidity to the whole firewall. Okay, so what I'm about to do, got my holes drilled. I'm gonna stick these bolts through, and we'll put a little tack weld on the outside, and then I'm gonna come around to the inside and put a few tack welds on the inside, just a few little ones, and then I'm gonna grind and come back to the outside. I'm gonna grind the head all the way off, and then I'm gonna weld it up like it's a spot weld, and I'll grind that all down, and it should be fully attached to the firewall. Alright, you can see how that turned out. So, holes for the master cylinder. But then inside we got studs for the bracket. And they should be pretty strong with the way that I welded them. So they're welded on this side and all the way on the other side. Next I'm going to make a reinforcement bar that's going to go from about right there all the way across to the other side. And I'll weld it in and run a couple of tack welds on either side of the bar every couple inches. There's no need to really weld it solid all the way across, but just something to tie that side of the tunnel thing to that side of the cowl and hold all the middle together, and then I'll run a couple stringers vertical off of it in a couple of places, and that should make that part of the firewall really, really stiff. And the reason I'm doing that is if you ever have to slam on the brakes real hard, a lot of the force from that is going to be transferred into this firewall, and I don't want it to bend or break anything, obviously. Up next, we need to install this Vintage Air condenser unit. This is the main piece of your air conditioning system. It has the heater core, the evaporator, the blower motor, all the controls and flaps and doohickeys. This thing is pretty big, but it all fits up under the dashboard, behind the dashboard, tucked in away out of sight. It should. It goes in there somehow. So I got to figure out exactly how it needs to bolt in place, and because I have an aftermarket firewall in that I want to keep smooth, I'm gonna do a couple of things different than the instructions tell you to do it. It's still gonna work fine. It's still gonna be in there exactly as it's supposed to be, but I'm not gonna have anything visible on this side of the firewall. I'm gonna run all my hoses through right here, like I said in the last video. I think the way that they want you to do it is they want you to use this plate here. I believe that would go something like that on the factory firewall. And one of these holes you use for locating and mounting the bottom of that condenser unit. So that's why I have this thing out here. I should be able to use this and how it sits on the firewall to locate that hole. So I'm gonna set up a camera and I'm gonna get working on it. The other way that it mounts is this bracket here goes to the top of this somewhere, and that bolts to the cowl panel, which the cowl panel is this guy right here. So it bolts somewhere in here. I imagine about like that maybe. I got the bracket installed on the back, got the one installed on the front. So now I'm gonna lift it up in there and try to rig it some way to where it will hold in place. I might use some self-tapping screws in the top just to hold it momentarily. Okay, so the installation instructions tell me that I'm supposed to put this piece of threaded rod through that hole right there. And I need to thread it into this part of this bracket. That's threaded into there. And you'd use that to locate the unit. Now, I have no idea if this is exactly where this would have been sitting on the other firewall, because I didn't measure it first. So we're just gonna wing it. It looks close. This side lines up pretty close over here along the edge. It's lined up along the top. And I know about where this started to turn before I modified it, and it was right about here. So I'm just gonna drill a hole there, and it should be close enough. I'm not using any of these other holes. I think this is either another bolt hole to go onto that bracket to hold the bottom of it. That little hole right there at the bottom, I'm gonna drill that out. I'm gonna punch it from this side, and then I'm gonna drill it out from this side, and we'll put a stud in there as well. All right, I tightened down the stud. I got a bolt. I drilled a hole in it. Got a bolt and a nut. I tightened all the top bolts, everything. That's where it's gonna be, and it's pretty stiff in there. A little bit of wiggle, but I think that's kind of designed into it. But it looks good. It fits. So now I'm going to remove that, repackage it, put it back in the box in storage where it'll be safe, because I'm not installing it today. I'm just mocking it up. So I went and I grabbed a long bolt out of my bolt bucket. It's 1/4 inch by 20. And I have about 1 inch of thread sticking out, and then I have a nut and a washer. And I'm going to pull this so it looks like it's about straight. I'm going to stick a tack weld on it. I'm going to check it on the back side. It don't got to be exactly, absolutely perfect. It's just got to be close. You just don't want it sticking up or down or left or right. Here we go, finished product. Looks pretty good. Doesn't look like there's anything there except a little bit of primer. It's really smooth. I can feel a little bit of a change, but nothing that a little bit of mud won't take care of. My hole's right there for the top of it. Come in here to the inside. We got a stud there and a stud there. So that's about an inch long on both of them, and then I tapered the ends so nuts would start on them really easily. Let me show you guys the driver's side. This is the finished product of that from last night. I think that turned out pretty good. That should be very stiff, very good and rigid, very strong. So at this point, the only thing that I have left to do is make a roof spoiler. And that is what next video is going to be all about. So I'll be doing that this weekend coming up. It's currently New Year's Day. It's Monday. Next video, roof spoiler. I'm getting pretty excited for that. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to remove the engine and transmission and all of the springs. We're about to order a bunch of really cool stuff for this truck. We're ordering coilovers, big brake kit, lots of parts for the engine. The frame will be going to powder coat, be getting black, powder coat the rear end. So big things coming real soon for this truck. Stay tuned. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.